to be educated, but I'm so frustrated.
Hey guys, we're back here at the lake again. Welcome back to the Music Mindset Channel. Hey, tonight before the sun, we just had daylight savings that kicked in, you know what I mean? So it's getting dark a little faster, but we're gonna be talking about Professor Longhair.
Oh, is that the guy who started that seafood place?
No, man, we're not Long John Silver, Professor
Longhorn Steakhouse then.
No, we're not talking about Longhorn Steakhouse. What are you talking about, man? No, we're talking about this guy who kind of set New Orleans on the map when it comes down to the beginnings and the basics of what funk is today. So we're gonna get into that tonight. So hang around to the end and I'll see you guys at the bottom. Now, to really understand why we are sitting here talking about Professor Longhair, you have to understand the ground he walked on and the air he breathed. You see, in the world of music, everyone wants to talk about the branches and the leaves. But today we are going down to the very root of the tree. We are talking about a man who is part of the DNA of New Orleans music, a pioneer of the rumba-boogie piano style, and a musician whose influence shaped generations of players who came after him. Henry Roeland Byrd, known to the streets as Fess, was born in Bogalusa, Louisiana on December 19, 1918. But his story really begins when his mother, Annie Mae Byrd, packed up and moved the family to New Orleans, fleeing the racial tension surrounding the bloody Bogalusa massacre when he was just a toddler. He grew up in Tremé, which is the oldest black neighborhood in the United States. Now, Tremé was not just a place to live, it was a rhythm culture. This is the same neighborhood that gave us the legendary drummer Earl Palmer, and Earl used to talk about how the funk started right there on those hot sidewalks. Earl had this story about a local man named Drag Nasty Foley, who smelled so bad you could catch a whiff of him from blocks away. He said when musicians played, they needed to think about that scent, because it would make you twist your face, scrunch your nose, and react with your whole body. That visceral, involuntary reaction, that stank face, is what they started calling funky in those New Orleans studios. Professor Longhair took that same raw, street-level energy and put it into 88 keys. But life was not a crystal stair for young Henry. A formal education was a luxury he could not afford.
Well, truthfully, I never had the opportunity to go to school. I had to work. I had a sick mother and a paralyzed brother to try to help support at that particular time. I didn't have a father.
Instead of books, he had the pavement. He worked as a cook, a member of the Civilian Conservation Corps, and even tried his hand at boxing before the ring took too many of his teeth. His real schooling happened on Bourbon Street, where he started out as a tap dancer for nickels and dimes. That is where his feet learned the syncopation that his left hand would eventually master on the keys. He actually wanted to play the drums first because pianos were too expensive, but he would hang around the clubs on the corner of Calliope and Franklin, watching the old heads like Sullivan Rock, Toots Washington, and others play that heavy barrel house style. He eventually found a broken piano that someone had thrown out in the trash, dragged it home, and painstakingly fixed it up himself. One day, he went back to listen to those musicians playing that old-time blues piano with drums and upright bass. He asked if someone would teach him, but they told him he just had to watch if he was to learn.
So after he finished with Boogie Woogie, in about 2 or 3 days, I was hitting over Boogie Woogie. And he said, well, you clever. Say, don't stop. Say, if you keep it up, you're going to make a good piano player. So you got fast fingers. From that one number, Boogie Woogie, from there on, I started creating my own. I didn't know what I was playing, but it sounded good to me.
Because that discarded piano was missing several keys, he had to teach his hands to hop over the gaps, creating a style musicians called jumping time or breaking time. He was playing with a sense of rhythm that the world had never heard, a mixture of the African drums and what Jelly Roll Morton called the Spanish tinge. By 1948, he was leading a band called the Shuffling Hungarians at the Caledonia Club. That is where the owner, Mr. Mike Tessitore, gave him the name Professor Longhair because of his shaggy hair and the way he schooled every other musician on those complex bass lines. In the Crescent City, calling a man professor was the highest honor you could give a piano player. He took that craft into Cosimo Matassa's J&M studio in 1949 and recorded a song that became the permanent anthem for the city.
If you're going to New Orleans, you gonna see the Mardi Gras.
That track is a quintessential New Orleans anthem, defined by its iconic whistled melody he does, and a rumba-boogie piano groove that blends Cuban clave rhythms with a local second-line beat, all anchored by his signature, heavy left-hand bass lines. It was the sound of the street parade meeting the island breeze. He followed that up with another classic that showed off his syncopated Afro-Cuban rhythms, unique vocal yodeling, and that heavy thumb roll he used to drive the bass line. That song right there inspired everyone from Fats Domino to Dr. John and Art Neville, cementing Fess as the king of the New Orleans Ivory Ticklers. He even saw some national glory in 1950 when his song Bald Head climbed all the way to number 5 on the R&B charts. During these years of success, he was a family man, married to his wife Alice and raising their children, and later even his grandchildren too. He was the man about town, the guru of the groove, and the world was finally starting to see what New Orleans already knew. But Fess was always wary of the industry.
Well, I was playing, but I never was interested in making no records because I've heard so much what was happening to the fellas during that time. I mean, you make the records, but the other guys get the money.
To try and get ahead, he would record under different names to get fresh advances, creating a tangled discography of pseudonyms like Roy Byrd. But as the 1950s moved along, the music industry started looking for a more polished rock and roll sound, and the raw, heavy groove of Professor Longhair began to fade from the spotlight. Tragedy started knocking on his door in 1954 when he suffered a stroke that kept him in the hospital for a year and left him with chronic health issues for the rest of his life. But in 1957, he was able to find the strength and recorded the song No Buts, No Maybes. He then re-recorded Go to the Mardi Gras in 1959 and first recorded Big Chief with its composer Earl King in 1964. But the money somehow dried up, and he found himself living in the slums where 2 separate fires destroyed his homes and everything he owned. He was living in the dark on Rampart Street with the lights cut off, often supporting himself through professional gambling and manual labor. But the worst blow, the one that really breaks your heart, came when his son Roland Jr. was shot to death on the street by a man named Sundown Morton. By the late 1960s, the man who defined the New Orleans sound was working as a janitor, sweeping the floors at the one-stop record shop just to keep a roof over his head. Most people in the city thought he was either dead or had moved away long ago. But you cannot keep a good man down, and his luck finally turned around in 1971. Now, there are 2 stories about how he was found. One says the artist Hudson Marquez found him dealing cards in a tavern, and the other says Quint Davis and Allison Minor found him in that record shop. Either way, they convinced him to step back onto the stage. He had not played a professional gig in years, and his health was shaky, but when he sat down at those keys, the magic was still there.
I've been using the name of Professor Longhair. I've been here, this wealth to say, 40-some years. And just like I tell you, if it don't be for this fella here helping me back into the music business, I wouldn't be in it.
He started taking his vitamins and found the strength to walk back onto that stage for the 2nd New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. He made a massive comeback that saw him playing for Paul McCartney on the Queen Mary and touring all over Europe. In 1976, he even took his talents to Chicago for a festival at the University of Chicago that proved he was still the boss. He spent his final years being treated like the royalty he was. And in 1977, a group of fans even opened a club called Tipitina's, just so he would always have a place to play. He moved his family into a better home and left the broom behind for good. Unfortunately, this would be the end of it all. Henry Roeland Byrd died on January 30th, 1980, after suffering a heart attack in his sleep. It happened just one day before his final masterpiece album, Crawfish Fiesta, was released to the public. He was gone just as the world was truly waking up to his genius. The world lost a great one, and New Orleans music will never be the same without him, but his legacy is louder now than ever before. Professor Longhair was posthumously inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1992, with Aaron Neville there to honor the man who laid the foundation. Today, a cast-iron bust of his likeness stands at the entrance of Tipitina's to remind everyone who the real Professor is. He proved that a man could lose his teeth, his home, and even his son, but as long as he kept that rhythm in his soul, he was still the king. Without him, the sound of New Orleans would just be another city's noise. He was the root of the tree that grew into the funk of the Meters and the soul of the Neville brothers. We are lucky we still have his records to remind us how it is supposed to be done. So anyway, guys, that's how it goes. Professor Longhair, man. A lot of people have been asking me about him, and so I thought I'd put that out there. And we're going to also get into Alan Toussaint. He's another one that's connected to that, and a few more guys. So when you see him pop up, make sure you click on those videos. That guy right there, man, he's got a story, man, incredible. And I hope you guys appreciate that, and I'm going to see you next time on the Music Mindset Chop. Thanks.